We got a question from a viewer asking, does size matter? Oh, he's talking about barrel length in a gunfight. It's a good question. But before I break down some pros and cons about barrel length, I want to let you know we have a gun giveaway going on right now. You can enter for free. Just click the link in the description down below to see which brand new gun you could win. All right, as we're talking about concealed carry handguns, barrel length usually comes up in the context of size or concealability. To make this a little bit easier, we will use standard Glock sizes as a reference point. There's the original duty-size pistol, the Glock 17, with its 4.5-inch barrel, which was intended to be carried in a duty holster by military or law enforcement. The 4-inch barrel Glock 19 was added for detectives or plainclothes officers and their need for something a little more compact and concealable. Then there was the addition of the roughly 3.5-inch barreled subcompact Glock 26 for deep concealment. Cutting the length of the barrel has its benefits when it comes to concealability, but other than size and concealability, what practical effect does barrel length really have? How can added barrel length give you an advantage? One of the most obvious is that a longer barrel generally allows for a finer sight picture thanks to the phenomenon of sight radius. That's the distance between the front sight post and the rear notch. This is much of the reason why target and competition pistols use iron sights and have long barrels, as long as the rules will allow for their particular sport. This need for a long sight radius is generally subordinate to concealability in a concealed carry piece, especially since the typical private citizen's defensive gun use doesn't require a precise shot at a long distance, except when it does. This is a good reason to go for the best sight setup that you can effectively conceal. Another effect of added barrel length is the velocity of the projectile. As the bullet travels down the bore, it's going to continue to increase in velocity as long as it has the increasing pressure of burning powder behind it. Even with small handgun cartridges, there is no real way to have too long of a barrel in a handgun. Pistol barrel long enough to use up all of the expanding gases of a 9mm round would look more like one used by Jack Nicholson in The Joker in the 1989 Batman movie. This is not realistically the stuff you want to put down your waistband. The Joker's ridiculously long-barreled handgun was, of course, a revolver, and that leads to another interesting point. Barrel length in a semi-automatic pistol, Derringer, single shot, or any other firearm where the chamber and barrel are integral is measured from the breech face to the muzzle. On a revolver, only the barrel length itself is measured. The cylinder is not. While this would seem to give a little velocity edge to a revolver in that the cylinder adds about 1.5 inches to the barrel, that's not measured, it gets balanced out by another revolver feature that bleeds velocity, the cylinder to barrel gap. In a revolver, the projectile gets launched from the cartridge and accelerates towards the barrel. It has to jump a certain amount of free bore space, and that's the space between the chamber head of the cartridge where the bullet does not engage the walls of the chamber, before crossing the barrel cylinder gap and hitting the rearmost part of the barrel called the forcing cone. This aligns the projectile and guides it into the rifling, which starts it spinning. The gap between the barrel and the cylinder is only a few thousandths of an inch, but it does allow a certain amount of pressure to bleed out. On a high-pressure Magnum cartridge, there's enough blast there to actually be dangerous, which is why it's important to mind where you put your finger and your thumbs when you're firing a wheel gun. There's another feature sometimes found on a handgun barrel that can reduce velocity, even on a semi-auto. That would be porting. This is an option on some models that's used to reduce muzzle rise or muzzle flip and to moderate felt recoil. Basically, this consists of ports or vents that are cut into the top of the barrel, which allow a certain amount of the propellant gases to vent upwards after the projectile passes the port. The force of the gas against the front of the vents, as well as its upward velocity, counters the opposing forces of muzzle flip and recoil. It's science. Porting is somewhat controversial on a handgun intended for defensive carry because the ports, being machined directly into the rifled area of the bore, can shave off small bits of material off the bullet's jacket as it passes and vents them upward. This also includes flakes of unburnt powder and the stream of hot venting gases. If the gun is fired while held close to the body in an extreme close quarters fighting position, these flecks and this unburnt powder can pepper the shooter's face or, much worse, his or her eyes. One way to lessen this and still get recoil reduction is to use a true expansion chamber compensator. This is a recoil reduction device that generally attaches to the end of the barrel, although some revolvers have them machined directly into the ends of the barrel right at the factory. The compensator differs from porting in that the upward opening vent does not cut into the rifling, but rather into an open freebore space right behind the muzzle, reducing the chances of jacket shavings being expelled upward. We've talked a lot about what's important on barrel length. Increasing barrel length or adding a compensator will make a gun less easy, more difficult to carry. Also, there's no amount of muzzle velocity or recoil reduction that's enough to make up for leaving that gun at home. It's called an everyday carry gun for a reason, so before you concern yourself with the minutia of barrel length, make sure that you have everything covered and you are carrying your gun every day. The key element of gun carry is comfort. Do what you can to make your gun more comfortable to carry and more comfortable to shoot. But comfort in carry is first, so make sure your gun is comfortable to carry, and then you will carry it every day. You'll have it when you need it. It's a true story of self-defense. We interviewed an armed Lyft driver who was carjacked to help answer these questions. Should I carry a gun while driving? And what does a carjacking actually look like? Just click the video next to me to watch this must-see interview.